Hey everyone, this is the Hipster Snek. Today we're going to talk about a specific mechanic of games that I've seen come up over time, and I just really don't like it. Specifically, what I want to talk about today are raids. What is a raid, you might ask? Well, a raid is basically what happens when you have a specific boss encounter that you can't tackle solo. These exist exclusively in games where an online player base is present. Now, raids come in lots of different flavors, and I want to clarify specifically what I'm talking about when I say the word raid. What I do not mean are, like the dungeons in Final Fantasy XIV, are not raids. They're just a 4-player party where everyone has to work together. Heck, even if you go to the full party, which is 8 players, or even bigger than that, up to 12, let's say, I don't really think you run into any particular problems. I mean, it can get a little bit crowded, but it's really not the same problem as massive WoW raids, and it all became popular because of WoW. The real problem is what I call the elephant in an arena. Because if you have an elephant, a colossal creature, and you have it in an enclosed area where it can't go anywhere, you throw 4 ants at it. What happens? The elephant just steps on them, and it's done. Now, fill the arena with thousands upon thousands of ants. The elephant will die. And the problem with that is, where is the actual victory in this kind of mindset? There really isn't one. It's just, there was so much against the elephant, so many tiny things that stacked on top of each other until it was just done. The biggest problem is there is no focus. No one person makes a contribution at that stage. Everyone can do everything that they can, but no one person in a raid of hundreds of people will ever be missed or really noticed for good or for ill. It's a boring, frustrating, tedious mess, and it causes a complete loss of player agency because you specifically don't matter, your teammates don't matter, the classes you're playing don't matter. What matters is that you have enough ants to throw against the elephant. Yeah, and let's talk about that elephant for a moment, because the elephant itself is a boring encounter. It has big numbers. It has a big attack stat. It might even have some big AoE abilities that you have to get out of the way of or watch for certain cues, but it's all artificially padded out because it just has tens or hundreds of thousands of HP worth of health that the ants have to whittle through before they get to the Pyrrhic victory that is killing something who has big numbers and nothing else. I've seen video footage of WoW raids, and it just looks like this exact kind of idea. Throw enough ants at it, no one ant matters, just that there's enough to whittle down the big numbers. And to say nothing of the fact that not only is this popular because WoW did it, and therefore pretty much every MMO out there tries to ape it, even other games that are not true MMORPGs do this, including Pokemon Go, of all things, which is a game that I do play very casually from time to time, but they'll have raid events where you require dozens of people wailing on a Pokemon because it has big numbers. And it makes it impossible for you to try to take them by yourself or just with 2 or 3 people. What you're doing is you're forcing all these people, forcing all these ants into the arena, herding them together because no one ant or small batch of ants has any chance. And therefore, you're removing from them any kind of individual importance, which is the entire power fantasy of playing a video game. You want to feel cool and strong and relied upon. You want to be the Doom guy. You don't want to be those hordes of demons that he's plowing through just because there's thousands and thousands of them. To say nothing that of these ants, there are a lot of them who have really awful attitudes about the whole thing. It really is a pretty huge turnoff for people who are just getting to a power threshold where they can partake in like 4-man dungeons and then you get subsequently larger content. And these people will just be like, oh my god, you don't have the dungeon or the boss memorized? Well, we're going to kick you out and not give you the chance to learn it because we're going to speed run this. We want to speed run this raid that's supposed to be built for 32 people with our really hoity-toity attitude because we've just been playing and grinding out this boss to the point where we have all of its movements memorized. It's a really, really caustic attitude, and more casual players will be turned off from the entire experience because the other people who are supposed to be standing shoulder to shoulder with them are not being super helpful in an overall design wherein the more unhelpful people you throw into the room, the less interesting the boss encounter is by design. Now, this is precisely why games like Monster Hunter and Warframe inherently limit the party size. Each of them has a hard cap of 4, and games like Earth Defense Force Iron Rain cap it at 6. Because that way, not only can they fine-tune the numbers to those party sizes, they can give you a legitimate challenge that doesn't involve you just storming by numbers, but every single player who is present matters that much more, and the boss can be designed around a party that can be not only a bit more nimble mentally and physically, but also have a feeling of actual accomplishment when the victory ultimately comes. I don't want to be a negative Nancy and say that it can't be done. It absolutely can. It can be done right, and the party size is going to be the primary factor upon whether this is just ants on an elephant, or if we're having, okay, this is going to be tough, but with the right party and the right coordination, we can win. This makes party composition matter. This makes your class choice matter. This makes everything matter infinitely more. And actually, I have a bit of a personal anecdote I wanted to share on this matter. I don't want you guys to think that I'm going to be Johnny Raincloud on the subject matter. My friends, 2 of them, wanted to go against the Alexander raids, which are a series of missions in Final Fantasy XIV that happen there's 3 groups of them, each of them consisting of 4 missions, each of them fairly short, mostly consisting of mini-boss and boss fights. And before you go down to the comments and go, oh my god, Alexander bringing people together, that's not right. No, chronologically speaking, I started playing the game after Stormblood was released. I stopped playing for a year, and I picked up again after Shadowbringers had already launched. I did not run into the early frustration that a lot of players did when Alexander was new content. So I didn't have quite the same experience. It started with just the 3 of us, Tutaku, myself, and a mutual friend. And while I was standing in Idleshire, just kind of goofing off and dancing in the street, because that's what I do when I'm bored, I had another character come over and just randomly start complimenting the glamour that I had picked for my class. And they and I got to talking around the time Tutaku and our friend arrived. And I was like, oh, hey, we're going to go storm Alexander. Do you want to come with us? And we just suddenly had 4 people. Now, I know Alexander is an 8-man raid. We were doing it all unsynced because Tutaku and our friend are way stronger than I am. They are about 20 levels higher than my character is. So we start down the first gauntlet. And as we get to the first 4, I believe, and then you have to kind of start flying around in the hinterlands in order to do the next part of the mission. And out of the corner of my eye, I see people kind of standing in the general area where some of the missions from Alexander are handed out. So I went over, I saw some orange text, and if anyone who's played 14 knows, character names show up in orange if they're on your friends list. And 2 of our mutual friends were standing there, and they were in the middle of some of the Alexander raids too. I was like, hey, throw in with us. We're plowing through, and we're on the second gauntlet. So, you come with us, we'll have 2 more. Suddenly we go from 4 to 6, and around the same time, another friend of mine PMs me and asks to join. So then we jump up to 7. And then as we're going through the second gauntlet, I actually warp back to Ishgard in order to repair my gear. And while I'm there, I run past another set of orange text. Another friend was heading the opposite direction of mine to the Jeweled Crozier. We stop and kind of shoot the breeze. And I'm like, hey, we have room for another. You want to come join us? So suddenly we have an 8-man, unsynced, really well-equipped, a really unbalanced raid team. We had 3 tanks, 3 white mages, and 2 dancers because I was playing dancer. It was quite the sight to behold, and it was amazing. We basically just stormed them and just completely crushed Alexander all the way to the very final confrontation. And it was quite the way of experiencing it for the first time. What changed in my eyes between a huge 100-man raid versus what we did was not only was it a group of close-knit friends, it was also a matter of there was only the 8 of us. We could only count on the 8 of us because no one else could join us. But each one of us felt like we were contributing something, even the weaker ones, namely me. We're all contributing something to the raid. I think that is a good way of having a large, quote unquote, large party of people in a raid like situation where every contribution feels meaningful. Everyone's actions are very coordinated. No one was just spamming heals just to try to heal people with no idea of who they were targeting. It was all very coordinated and it felt great coming together that way. And it sort of what was sort of serendipitous, the fact that we were all happened to be on, we all happened to just run into each other, mostly me running into everyone else. And it was just a fun way of having this boss gauntlet where it felt like everyone was giving their all and it all mattered. If you want a good online experience, it should feel like that night felt when we got to storm Alexander. And on that note, I'm actually going to end this one on a happy note. And I hope that more game companies take to heart how a good party composition can make even a boring dungeon into a lot of fun. I actually run the main story queue all the time, and then I just talk smack in the text chat while during all the cutscenes. Maybe I'll see you there. Who knows? This has been the Hipster Snek, and I'm signing off for now. See you next time.